Welcome to episode 47 of the Active Bariatric Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Kim Tirapelli, bariatric sports dietitian. Today, I'm really excited to chat with bariatric powerlifter Ashley Smith, also known as Move.Ash on Instagram. Ashley is 39 years old, living in central Alabama with her husband and 9-year-old daughter. Ashley describes herself as a lifelong dieter who realized after her daughter's birth that she needed to seek help for her disordered relationship with food. In 2016, she began therapy, which helped her gradually heal her relationship with food and begin exercising for its many benefits unrelated to weight loss. While she continued to work on achieving a healthy weight through her diet, Ashley found joy in exploring new types of movement like Zumba, yoga, spinning, and strength training. She began lifting heavy in the gym and found it gave her a new degree of self-confidence, but still she struggled to manage her weight and found herself unable to lose the weight she wanted. After many years of yo-yo dieting and with the help of her therapist and support of her husband, Ashley made the decision to have gastric bypass surgery in 2022. She had surgery in August of that year and has lost more than 130 pounds from her highest weight. In early 2023, at 4 months post-op, Ashley resumed strength training with a new trainer and was introduced to powerlifting, which she quickly fell in love with. In December 2023, she competed in her first powerlifting meet. Now she continues to train, growing in strength and preparing for her next powerlifting meet to come. Thanks so much for being here today, Ashley. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah. And I know we were just talking about it before I hit record here, but this was kind of your first foray into the powerlifting, competition. And I'm so excited to hear that perspective from you and kind of your experience with all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. As a beginner, it's been very intimidating, but also really exciting.
Sure. Yeah. And I just wanted to say too, and following you on Instagram, I always love all of your posts about just like body positivity. And like, I just wanted to mention this. I know I didn't say this even before we hit record, but I love your posts just about like, you do you and be you. And you know what I mean? I just really appreciate your posts. So everyone that's listening, you got to give Ash a follow because you're going to love her posts, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now let's dive in a little bit, but tell us a little bit about why you chose to have bariatric surgery and how it's impacted your life.
Well, as you said in the intro, I really kind of consider myself to have been a lifelong dieter. I remember signing up for my first diet in 2006, right after I graduated from college. It was an online program that I was following. And, I had some success with that. I did lose about 80 pounds in that first initial effort to lose weight. But what I found was that the minute I needed to take a little bit of a break, just from the tracking and the counting and the, obsessing a little too much about what I was eating all the time, the minute I slowed down, the weight would start to come back. And so it really began that weight cycle for me, that I would begin a diet, lose weight, have success with pretty much any diet that I tried. But the minute I took my foot off the gas, I would see the weight come back. And I had the most, let's say, drastic weight loss effort right before I got married, which was in 2010. And I was very successful losing the weight. But literally when the honeymoon was over, the weight just started creeping back up. And I just really couldn't get control of it. So I did, again, take some time off from trying to lose weight. I got pregnant in 2013 and had my daughter in 2014. And after her birth, instead of losing the weight I had gained during pregnancy, I really continued to lose weight and made it all the way up to my highest weight. And it was around that time that I realized that what I was experiencing and the sadness that I was feeling and all of those things combined, it was a little bit more than I could handle on my own. Sure. And so at that time, I was lucky enough to be referred to a therapist who specializes in eating disorders and disordered eating. And so among all the other normal life things, she's also really been able to help me with that. And something that's so funny for me to reflect on now is that when I began seeing her back then in 2016, one of the things I was really adamant about was that I did not want to have weight loss surgery. I saw in myself that I was going down a road that looked to me like I was headed toward my 600-pound life, right? I thought I can't get this under control. That is where I will be. I saw it as I am going to have weight loss surgery if I don't do something. And that was not
Sure.
what I wanted to do. So I began therapy, which has been the single most impactful decision of my life. And I can't say enough that even if you don't think you need therapy, you should go anyway. You know, everyone can benefit from it.
Yeah.
But it made a huge difference for me. And in time, of course, it's been 7 or 8 years now, but in that time, it's been a long time. I have really been able to get my relationship with food back to a manageable and healthy place. And so, in all that time, I, as you said as well, discovered a joy of movement that I found unrelated to weight loss. It was very important for me to disconnect those two things, to find exercise and activity that I did not for the purpose of losing weight. Um, so that's when I started Zumba,
Yeah.
which was my very first fitness love, as I like to say.
Yeah.
But I was starting to get all of these things kind of in order, and yet still, I couldn't manage my weight. It was the same process of I would begin an effort, I would have success. I would need to take my foot off the gas for a vacation or any kind of life event that
Sure.
needed my focus. And within weeks, that weight would be coming back on. And so I remember very specifically, we went, or it was Christmas a few years ago. And so, as one does, I took a little time off from counting and tracking for the holidays. And
Sure.
over a few weeks in December, I gained 10 pounds. And it took me 6 months to lose those 10 pounds that I had put on in 2 weeks.
Sure.
Um, and after those 6 months, we went as a family on vacation to the beach. And in 1 week at the beach, I regained those 10 pounds that had just taken me 6 months to lose.
Sure.
And I came back from that and said, I need more help. It's not me. I'm doing all the things. I was exercising 6 to 7 hours a week and loving it, enjoying it.
Sure.
Um, I was eating well, eating, nutritious, whole, healthy foods 80% of the time. I was doing all the things that they say to do, but
Right.
it just wasn't working. And it was sort of after that experience that I realized, having weight loss surgery is not something that happens to you. It's not something that is a sentence you're given for not working hard enough.
Right.
I really realized then that truly it would be a tool, and I needed to use every tool that I could have at my
Sure.
disposal. Um, so, of course, at this point, I had been doing therapy for about 6 years, and
Yeah.
it was a really difficult decision. And it felt like I went from absolutely not to, okay, I want to do this like overnight. Like that's how it felt. But it was honestly with years and years of work that brought me to that decision.
Sure.
And so I did make that decision at the end of, I guess it was actually 2021, and began the process early in 2022. Had my, it was 7 month process for me with insurance and everything. Had
Sure.
my surgery in August of 2022, and the change has been astounding. Um, for the first time in my life, I'm able to eat what I consider a modest portion of food and feel satisfied, and not feel like I have to clean my plate and want some more
Right.
to be able to stop. It's just
Sure.
really been life changing in ways I never expected. I know food noise is a term that we've begun to hear a lot more
Yes.
recently, but that is
Yes.
absolutely the right term for me is that the food noise is almost completely gone. It's, it's still there. I do still experience hunger, which some people don't. I do. I get hungry, but it's not overwhelming. It doesn't take over my thoughts and my life when I feel that it's time to have something to eat.
Right.
The planning, the always thinking about what's next isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And so reducing the food noise was really what allowed me to begin focusing on new and different things that I hadn't been able to do before. I,
Sure.
have shared with my coworkers that it's so funny to me that I suddenly became so much more productive at work
Oh,
because I could
that's a good
really
thing.
focus on what I was
Yeah.
doing. And
Right.
it has kind of been that way in every aspect of life, which is part of why I've been able to focus on finding, powerlifting, is that
Right.
I was able to stop thinking about food, as trite as that might sound, long enough to focus on something else.
Sure.
And it's
And
just really been astounding.
yeah, and I was going to say, I think that your story is so relatable because I hear that from so many folks, especially as they embark on this journey and make that decision of having bariatric surgery, or even, now with the GLP-1 medications and those really
Mm-hmm.
seeming to help also really reduce that food noise, food chatter, that kind of chronic thought process of, it's very hard. Obesity is a chronic disease that we need every tool at our,
Absolutely.
discretion. We need to use it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And different tools are going to work at different phases of your life, and we may need to layer them, or we may need some at one at a time. And
Mm-hmm.
what I hear you saying though is so relatable, just that, it just it takes some folks longer than others to make the decision, and that's okay. And I think too, what I'm hearing that is been helpful for you is the amount of therapy that you have been in terms of the duration, and how that's really helped
Yes.
you to address the relationship with food. And then that is allowing you to now focus on other things too, as you're moving your body. And we're going to talk about that next, your fitness journey, but that you're able to fuel your body, and you're not connecting. I have to, I have to go lift today because I had, a bigger dinner and I need to go work out to burn that off. No, you're
Right.
fueling your
Absolutely not.
body. Yeah, you're fueling your body to move. And that's exciting. I feel like that's exciting, kind of connection that you're making.
Yeah, it really is. And, one of the things that I know I see a lot of people, especially on Instagram, say in the bariatric community is, what is your biggest regret? And the answer is always that I didn't do it sooner. And I have to say, for me, that is absolutely not true. Um, I was not ready to do it sooner.
Right.
I did it exactly when it was the right time to do it.
Yep.
If I had done it sooner, I don't believe I would have been as successful as I have been and will continue to be. I think I would have done it before I was ready,
Right.
and there's a lot of getting ready to get ready that you do before
Yep.
you even know that you're getting ready.
Yeah.
And I went through that
Absolutely.
whole process. It was years long, but the result was that it put me in exactly the right place to make exactly the right decision at exactly the right time. And
Yeah.
if I had done that any differently, the results probably would have been different for me.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that that's such a good point, because I do feel like sometimes folks, we get caught up in social media and kind of comparing, and, oh, this person did this well, or, they did it this way, or this time they had their surgery. It's like, no, just do you. And when you're ready and when it feels the best for you and you've put in the work, then go for it. You know what I mean? But comparing or feeling like, oh, I should have done it sooner. I get what you're saying. And I know I hear that too. I should have done it sooner, which is great. I mean, it sounds like a lot of folks are very happy usually that they've had the surgery. It's better than saying, I
Right.
wish I hadn't ever done it. Most folks are always saying, like, how happy they are that they've done it. But let's just talk really quickly about the fitness journey as well. So when you first had your surgery, I know you said you did Zumba, and you kind of did some strength training and yoga and things like that. Kind of tell us how you have progressed over time since you had your surgery through this fitness journey, and like what things you've moved into.
Right. So before surgery, as you said, I was really active in Zumba. I fell in love with yoga, which I never expected to like.
Yeah.
I have a spin bike. I was doing that, and I had started strength training with a trainer in the gym, and most of that was pre-COVID. And of course, things kind of changed in the
Yep.
COVID time frame. Um, And so when I had my surgery, at that point, I had become pretty inactive. Some of that was a byproduct of COVID. The trainer I had been working with had moved, and I no longer had a trainer. So at the time of surgery, I was not active at that time, and naturally having surgery and beginning to see some weight loss success was very motivating to like, I got to get back out there. I got to, get back on my routine. And I wanted to do everything. I wanted to jump back into 6 to 7 hours a week and do it all.
Yep.
So what I had seen the most success with, maybe not success, but personal satisfaction with before my surgery was strength training. So I thought the first step I needed to take was find a new trainer. Since my trainer had moved, I wanted to find someone more local to me.
Sure.
So there was a trainer that I had followed for a while on Instagram who trains at a gym near my home. And so I reached out to him and, really just for the purpose of personal training. I want to get back in the gym. I know for myself that if I'm not accountable to another person who is going to be there when they expect me to be there, I may not be there. So it's,
Sure.
that person is important for me. So I reached out to him. He was kind enough to put a new time at the end of his day that I could be there. And we began personal training. I was 4 months post-op at that time. And like I said, I wanted to do all of it. I wanted to jump right back into 100% all of it. And, he was smart enough to say, now, hang on, let's
build up.
He was, I don't believe he's ever trained anyone who's had weight loss surgery, but he was familiar with it. So he said, let's just start slow. Let's just do this, we'll do this 3 times a week and see how it goes, because I think you're going to find that fueling this level of activity may be challenging. So let's start slow. And I grumbled, but okay, let's do that. Needless to say, he was 100% correct. So, beginning 3 times a week with strength training, it was hard. I was very hungry pretty quickly. That's absolutely when my hunger first started to return, was when I started needing a little bit more for what I was doing. And as I said, I was 4 months post-op. So I was still in the very low calorie range at that time.
Sure.
And there were days that I just had to say, my restriction has been real high today. I haven't been able to get a lot in today. And we would take it easy on those days because I just didn't have it in me.
Yeah. You have to listen to your body. Yeah.
Right. But with time and with my ability to gradually eat a little bit more as the months went on, I was able to add a little bit more into my routine. And so what I settled on that I really enjoy is strength training 3 times a week. And then I like to do 1 day of spinning and 1 day of Zumba, as long as my schedule allows for all those things. I try not to put too much pressure on myself because, then I'll start to get back into that bad habit that I used to have of thinking that it was connected with my weight loss. And I try to just do it because I love it now, because I really do. And so that's where I am right now, doing 3 days a week of strength training, usually 1 spin class, try to make it to Zumba whenever I can on Saturday mornings with my Zumba class, which I love. And I'm working on getting back into yoga, but I haven't quite made that step yet, but I do love it as well. And I'm really looking forward to feeling like I can add that back in too.
Yeah, I know. And I know you and I were talking about Carla, who I had on previously too, who was a power lifter. Yeah. Yoga, stretching, flexibility. I remember when I spoke with her, she was saying that, if she didn't have proper flexibility in her hip, it was going to be harder for her, especially as you get into heavier weightlifting. You need to have full mobility and flexibility in the joints. And, yoga is so wonderful for that. And I think it's such kind of a, when you think of like strength training, it's intense, you're putting in a lot of effort. Whereas yoga, you can really kind of focus on how you're feeling, what your body is telling you. And that increase in flexibility and mobility is going to help you ultimately to, go farther in your powerlifting journey, which is what I want to ask you about right now. Tell us a little bit about, you just did your first show. So kind of how did you get get going? Like, when did the thing click where you're like, I'm going to do a powerlifting show? Like, what led you to that?
Well, as I mentioned, I started with this new trainer back in
Yeah.
January of 2023.
Okay.
And I just signed up for personal training. I just wanted somebody to help me through the gym, be there, keep me safe, teach me how to do new exercises.
Right.
Uh, did not know what powerlifting was, did not know I had just joined a powerlifting gym.
Oh,
And
surprise.
right. And I mean, they have like, I don't know what they call it. I'll call it a regular gym. There's a regular gym too. But it, as far as I can tell, is pretty geared toward powerlifting.
Sure.
So I, began to go, and I'm hearing the noise from the powerlifting room and not really understanding what's going on in that room behind that closed door.
Yeah.
And as I'm learning a little bit more about what we're doing, and my trainer begins me on what is still my current rotation, I guess, or my training split is squats on Mondays, bench press on Wednesdays, and deadlifts on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's exposing me to this, and I had done all these lifts before, but I'm remembering how to do them, and I'm enjoying the success and adding, going up in weight and everything.
Sure.
And but still not totally knowing or understanding what powerlifting is. And so I met another woman who trains right before me and learned that she had done powerlifting meets. And she may listen to this and she'll know who she is. And I'm thinking, well, she's just a normal person,
Right.
like she can't be a powerlifter. She's just a normal person. And I
Sure.
had no idea that powerlifters are just normal people,
Right.
And I came to know how much success she had powerlifting, and I was like, well, I want to do that. I
Yeah.
want to be strong. I want to be as strong as she is.
Right.
So I started to learn more about it, and within a few months, I was like, sign me up.
Let's go.
My gym hosts 2 meets a year, and the first meet of the year was too soon for me to have participated because I had just started.
Okay.
But the next meet we knew would be toward the end of the year, wound up being in December. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. Sign me up. And I won't say that I went into it blind, because I asked every person I know every conceivable question and probably drove everyone crazy trying to learn everything about it.
Sure.
But my first meet that I competed in was my first meet I'd ever been to. So
Yeah.
it was a learning experience, but it was just the most fun I may have ever had. It was just wonderful.
Oh, I love that. So tell us, just so folks that are listening again, to remind, like, what does the meet entail? So tell us about the different lifts and kind of, how many chances you have at each weight and that kind of thing, just so that folks understand, what does this mean? What does a meet look like?
Right. Okay. So I'm a beginner. So I'm going to give you the beginner level understanding of
Totally.
what goes on. There is more, but
Yeah.
so powerlifting is a strength sport. It is made of the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
And at a meet, which is a competition, you will have 3 attempts to lift your heaviest possible weight on each of those 3 lifts.
And you just do it
So
once, right? One repetition.
1 rep for each
Mm-hmm.
attempt. That's right.
Yes.
So,
Got it.
you'll do your warm ups, and then when time comes, you'll basically get 3 attempts, and everybody goes in order. So, if you're number one and there are 10 lifters in your flight, you'll lift, and then the next 9 will go, and then you'll come back around for your second attempt. So, everyone
Got it.
takes 3 attempts. Each of your attempts gets heavier, unless you miss one, in which case you can stay at the same weight if you want. So everyone gets 3 attempts. Lifters are divided into flights. So each flight will do squat before anybody does bench press. So each flight will do squat, then each flight will do bench press, and then each flight will do deadlift. And then it's 8 hours later and your day is over. And it's a very, very long day. But it's a really fun experience.
I love that. And then just so how the scoring goes, my understanding is now they tally your attempts. The highest one that you got is what kind of goes for that movement, right? The highest weight that you achieved in
Yes.
that particular lift, whichever one it is. And then do they add the 3 total weight together to see who lifted the most weight? Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. They'll add your heaviest successful squat, bench press, and deadlift. That makes your total.
Got it.
Now, there's also a calculation made with your body weight called your DOTS score.
Okay.
And that ultimately determines who's best lifter. But that's like an overall meet, I think,
Yeah.
award. Um,
Sure.
Lifters are also divided by weight class
Okay.
and age. So you may be the only person in your weight class at your age.
Sure.
You can compete in the open class, which is what I did, which is then just against other people in your weight class without respect to age.
Yep.
And I will say I won first place because the other 3
Woo!
didn't show up, and you can't you can't win if you don't show up. So I got to
That's
bring
how it
home
works.
a gold medal, which I'm going to hang on my wall because I got to bring home gold that day. So I was very proud.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you should be. And guess what? You showed up and you put in the work. And, as my, just this previous week, I had on a guest, Jen, who talked about, a lot of the win is just, putting in the work and the training. And that's
Right.
really, really like important. The training is just as important as the competition day. That's a win as well.
Absolutely.
So, I just want to, throw that in there that, you put in all that work, and that's fantastic. I love that. So, okay. So let me ask you another question. Tell us a little bit about you gave us a little bit on your training split, but just again, so you lift 3 days a week, you do one of the movements each day. Now, do you do auxiliary lifts like to kind of enhance those muscle groups? Like, do you do additional chest movements or leg movements to enhance your strength for those particular competition lifts?
Yes, absolutely. We usually start the day with the big, think it's the compound lift. You can correct
Okay.
my terminology if that's wrong.
Yes, no,
But
you're right.
so we'll start the day like today is Monday. I will go squat after this. We'll do squats right now. We're focusing on pause squats. He said this whole training block, we're going to do pause squats, which are miserable, but they're very effective. So, yeah,
Sure.
we'll do squats first. That takes up about 2/3 to half of the time. And then after
Okay.
that, we'll work on auxiliaries or other accessories. And like I said, I have a trainer, so it's up to him what I do on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries not to give me things I hate too often, like hanging knee raises and planks. But
Yeah.
we do things like that too.
Sure. Good. And then additional, like, do you do additional, you said that you do other workouts on other days like cardio or things like that, just to kind of, keep your body moving?
Yes, I do. And on that subject, when I was in prep for my first meet, my coach did have me cut all of my cardio out because
Okay.
he said nutritionally, I needed all of my fuel to go to, strength, muscle repair, rebuilding, working
Love it.
toward that meet. So for
Yeah.
those, it was probably about 8 weeks. For those 8 weeks, I didn't do any cardio,
Okay.
which, coming from a place of dieting, it's kind of hard to cut the
Sure.
cardio out,
Right.
but it was a great lesson in allowing the food I'm eating to be fuel for what I'm doing, and really focus on gaining strength in that period of time.
Right.
So I didn't do any cardio during that period, but
Yeah.
now I am returning to usually a spin class on Tuesdays
Mhm.
and a Zumba class on Saturdays.
Yeah, I love that. No, and I think that's important. And I just want to hone in on that. We're going to talk about your nutrition right now, but what you're doing periodization. Your cycle, your training cycle is going to be dependent upon what the goal is for that cycle. And like your trainer had you do, okay, we're cutting out cardio right now. It doesn't mean that you'll never resume it. It just means
Right.
that for this particular cycle, we're focusing all of our energy and our output, and the workouts are focused around getting ready for this meet, which is obviously a strength competition. So we're focusing on preserving your energy from your nutritional intake to perform at that meet. And that doesn't require that additional cardio. And as your cycles change, then, your nutrition will change as well. And I call that, we call that nutrition periodization, which means we match your output with what you're putting into your body. And I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, where you said, at 4 months, you noticed that your appetite increased, but that also correlated with you beginning this strength lifting routine and jumping back into, really moving your body at maybe more than you had been in those previous months where you just had your surgery and your, lowest intake. And I just want to acknowledge that, because I think a lot of folks get kind of a little bit nervous when they start having those hunger cues, like, oh, the surgery didn't work. Why am I having this? And it's like, well, no, it's okay. Your body is working properly. It's telling you, hey, I'm moving my body more. I need to fuel more. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Have you noticed the changes in your appetite based on what you're doing with your movement goals?
Oh, absolutely. There are days that I can feel, let's say I'll feel tomorrow how hard I worked today.
Sure.
If I have a particularly heavy day, especially, the next day I will feel just like ravenous. And post surgery, that's kind of hard to manage, because I may feel ravenous, but I can still only eat, the tiniest
Small
little
amount.
bit, more now than a year ago.
Sure.
So it's really an exercise in intentional eating, making sure that I'm picking the things that are going to give me what I need, and then really paying attention to, timing of my meals, to let myself eat maybe smaller meals, but a little more often, so that I can get a little more in over the course of the day, which, is kind of counterintuitive to the standard bariatric plan or mindset.
Yes.
But, I also kind of think that a bariatric athlete is not your standard bariatric patient necessarily. So we have to do things a little differently.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's based on your goals, and what you're working toward is going to be different from someone else. And that's okay. And how far out you are from when you've had your surgery, all those little variables also impact, overall intake and things like that. But no, I appreciate you mentioning that, just because, like I said, everyone in their journey is going to be at different points with how much they need. And yes, you might have to fuel more frequently in the day to get the volume of intake, obviously in smaller bouts, right? Because you can't eat a large portion because you've had bariatric surgery, but that necessary energy is required, and in order to meet what you need to fuel those workouts, we have to maybe oftentimes add in a snack or two. And that's kind of what I want to jump into. The biggest question I get on all my social media pages, or like when folks start working with me, is like, hey, I had bariatric surgery, and I want to run a marathon. I want to eventually do I really want to gain muscle, whatever it might be. And I'm lifting now, or I'm running more. And how am I going to be able to eat enough to fuel these workouts? So can you talk a little bit about how you've adjusted your nutrition over time? Because again, this is not just straight out of surgery, we're going to be eating 6 times a day. No, obviously, no. You have to get to a point where your body can tolerate more. But tell us a little bit about how you've adjusted your nutrition over time to fuel these workouts.
Right. My surgeon's plan is to eat 3 meals a day with no snacks. And when I mentioned at one of my appointments how much hungrier I had been since starting strength training again, he said, well, if you really need it, you can have a snack. Right. So it was shocking to realize that I was going to have to stray from what he was recommending to be able to support what I was trying to do. Right. So I really focus on adding in really intentional snacks in my day.
Okay.
I never have been a big breakfast eater. I'm still not much of a breakfast eater. It doesn't make me feel really great. So I'll just have a little breakfast, but then I try to eat an early lunch. Have a really good lunch. And then I do really eat 2 or 3 snacks over the course of the afternoon. That's changed since maybe when I was 6 months post-op, I might have struggled to get 1 snack in. Now I'm at 2 or 3, and one of those is usually about an hour before I go lift.
Perfect.
but I've had to, because otherwise I just hit that wall mid workout and just feel like I can't. This is too much. I need to rest. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to get the most out of my hour. I want to do everything I'm meant to do when I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
And that has meant, adding food in a little more frequently. But I have continued to lose weight while I'm doing all this. So I feel that I'm still meeting all the goals that I'm setting for myself. So
Yeah, totally. So let's talk a little bit about what are those types of foods. So what do you typically have in as a snack, or maybe more specifically in that 1 hour pre-workout? What do you like to take in and it works for you?
So my snacks earlier in the afternoon, I try to do some type of combination of protein and carb. So I'll
Perfect.
do like a Greek yogurt with granola, or a fruit with a cheese. And I really enjoy both of those combinations, especially.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite thing to eat before my workout, it may be a little protein heavy, I'm not sure. But usually about an hour before my workout, I'll eat something like a piece of toast with some cottage cheese.
No, it's great.
Since surgery, I have maybe too much of an obsession with cottage cheese, but it is a protein that always sits well in my new tummy.
Yeah.
Other proteins can hit or miss, might make me feel less than great, but cottage cheese is always there for me. So
Yeah.
usually about an hour before a workout, I have like a piece of toast with some cottage cheese, maybe a fruit with cheese if I haven't already had that in the day.
Okay.
Um, but as long as I get that in about an hour before, I usually feel really good for my whole workout.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what I want to highlight is, yeah, you're incorporating carbohydrates with the fruit, with the toast, even the Greek yogurt and the granola. That might be maybe a snack prior to that 1 hour before. That's all again contributing because you're putting in those carbohydrates that your body can utilize and break down for when you need to produce that energy in the movements that you're doing in the gym. So no, that's excellent. I'm so glad to hear that you're eating that because like I said, everybody's different, and that's part of why I like to have real bariatric athletes on the podcast is because there is no one perfect meal or snack, you guys. Everybody that has come on this podcast has shared something else that worked for them. Your case, you're like cottage cheese really sits well. Super great. It's a great protein. You're getting in calcium, vitamin D, you're getting in,
Yeah.
the toast, you're getting the carbs. So I love it. And even though we have these rules about, we want to try to get 15 to 30 carbs in the hour or two pre-workout, again, it's going to come down to what works best for you. And that may change over time. So I just want to commend you. That's awesome. And how about post-workout? Do you said you lift typically later in the day. Do you go home and have like your dinner, or how does that work?
I do. My training sessions are usually at 6:30, which is pretty
Okay.
late in the day, which is also
Right.
why I have that third snack before I go.
Right.
I usually get home around a quarter to 8, which is a little late for dinner, but I go ahead and have dinner after that, and that usually wraps up my day.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but it is a full
And
a
again,
full dinner, usually protein heavy.
yeah, good and good recovery. Yeah, I mean, typically I try to tell folks if we can, we want to eat within an hour, hour or so, 2 hours, maybe maximum post workout, and we try to get in the 20 to 40 grams of protein. So that can come from your lean meats, that can come from cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, or protein shake, and then we still want to get in some carbohydrates that can be fruits, vegetables, whole grains. And I get a lot of folks that they work out later in the day, and some people will have like half their dinner pre-workout, meaning so they're getting that blend of protein and carbs, or a snack, or they just like you do, you have your snacks and then you just have your dinner when you get home. And I just wanted to also highlight that, guys, if you listen to what Ashley's saying, yes, so she eats at 8 o'clock. I know folks kind of have these so many food rules and diet rules of like timing. And as you heard Ashley already just say, she's still losing weight. And it's because in the course of a 24-hour period, it's more important to focus on your overall intake of your protein and your carbs and your movement for the day and your sleep. And the hour by hour exact time of the day that you did those things is not as critical as the overall picture. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I just try to get folks to kind of move away from all those darn lingering diet rules and food rules that we have, from this society of pushing that crap. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
everybody's got to find a schedule that works for them. So, okay. And so what do you think have been like the biggest nutrition lessons that you've learned since having your bariatric surgery and trying to fuel for, your competition and your new powerlifting?
Probably that carbs play so much more of a role in strength than I ever knew.
Sure.
You kind of think protein, 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 not just from a bariatric standpoint, but from a strength training standpoint, protein shakes and protein powder and all this, and it's all about protein.
Yeah.
But carbs are just as important.
Yep.
They are fuel, they are energy, and without them you will have no energy. If you ate 1,000 calories of protein and nothing else, you'll survive, but that might be about it. You'll have no energy for anything else. So
Right.
I
Right.
know that kind of goes against standard bariatric advice. It does go against my surgeon's own advice, but again, I just had to figure out that all protein and no carbs, or little to no carbs, was not what was going to work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you and I are kind of saying, everybody's different. We're not telling folks to not listen to their surgeon, but at the same time, you have to find what works best for you. And sometimes those initial, dietary guidelines that are provided initially after surgery, they just don't they don't help when you move forward and your goals change, and now your focus is on body composition goals, enhancing muscle and strength and power, or maybe endurance goals. And those nutritional guidelines aren't going to be sufficient for those new goals, and that's okay. And it's always good to talk with a professional, whether it's a registered dietitian or your surgeon or your medical team. But I just love to hear that it's not like you're going rogue. You're just trying to fuel your body. I don't think there's anything wrong
Right.
with that. You're listening to your body, and you're still
Right. And
using
I
your
can
tool.
certainly tell a difference when
Yeah.
I've had enough carbs and when I probably could have had a few more.
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference in energy is noticeable.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, because we want to get away from being afraid of carbs. It's okay. You can be on a healthy bariatric journey and still incorporate carbohydrates. It's okay. Just got to find the amount that works best for you.
Right.
And I wanted to highlight too, just let's talk a little bit about body composition. Because, you're a woman, I'm a woman, a lot of times women, tend to, we do focus more on like cardio or, okay, we're just going to lift, I on so many episodes have tried to really, highlight the importance of strength training for women, especially as we get older, and that we don't need to be afraid of it. And it's not going to make us bulky, or, we don't have the same testosterone as men. We're not going to be able to
Right.
put on the mass that men can, certainly not as rapidly. And I just wanted to hear kind of your thoughts on how powerlifting has helped you to, change your body composition.
It absolutely has. I guess in ways that I didn't expect it to. Because like you're saying, at least I thought, I might run the risk of looking like a bodybuilder,
Right.
right? But if you've ever known a bodybuilder, the amount of work and effort that goes into having that kind of physique is not something that's going to happen on accident.
Right.
You're not going to just wake up one day and find that you look that way. They put a tremendous amount of effort into that. So it's really not a risk that you run unless you're going for that specifically.
Right.
So I found, for me, what's really funny is I've realized recently that the size of clothing that I'm wearing now is the same size of clothing I wore before, but at 50 pounds less than I weigh now.
Yeah.
So at 50 pounds heavier, I'm in the same size as, several years ago,
Sure.
which I think says a lot for, muscle density, and
Yes.
the argument that muscle weighs more than fat, which of course we know is a flawed argument.
Right.
But it's definitely different in that way. I will say something that's funny to me. My mom and I both complain, or have always complained about, we can't put a purse on our shoulder, right? Because the purse will just fall off. I can put a purse on my shoulder. I have broader shoulders now. And so now
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but like now I can carry a purse on my shoulder. It doesn't fall off.
Sure.
It's so
Sure.
funny. I will say not to be afraid of having a little bit of a wider shoulder or a wider back if you're a lady,
Right.
because hey, if your back's a little wider, your waist is going to look a little narrower.
There you go. Right.
So
Sure.
it's all about proportions.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my body shape, while, I still look like myself, it's still relatively the same. At the same time, it's also somehow completely different.
Hmm.
Clothes fit me, I think, as they're supposed to fit now. I had such a hard time before, even when I found clothes in my size, they just didn't feel like they fit right. And now
Yeah.
clothes just kind of fit right. And I think that's just all about, things have kind of rearranged and some things are in a different place. And it's just, I think it's worked out in my favor. I think that it's made a very positive change.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight that you mentioned you're wearing smaller clothes sizes at a higher number on a scale. And that's why I try to, I really hone in on like, don't focus your whole life's, success is not on this number on a scale, because oftentimes the number on the scale, especially when you're lifting and you're trying to change your body composition, you're going to gain muscle, and you can see the number on the scale increase for a variety of reasons, besides that you're gaining muscle. But certainly it doesn't correlate with all the great things that are actually happening. And so now when you
Right.
look at, okay, my body shape is totally different and changed despite some arbitrary number on the scale being, maybe much higher, and that's okay. And look at all the great things that you're achieving. You know what I mean? I like to highlight that because I think we all kind of get stuck on that number, and it can be so irritating, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you're doing so many wonderful things. And that's why I really just try to hone in on, body composition, try to get a more full, robust picture of what's actually happening in your body, instead of
Right.
that stupid scale.
And as a bariatric patient, especially, I think there is such an emphasis on the scale and the number on the scale. And as expected, I knew that it would happen. As soon as I started back strength training, and especially once I got into really heavy lifting, my
Sure.
weight loss really did slow down. It slowed down
Hmm.
pretty dramatically.
Okay.
And that was alarming at first, even though I fully expected it.
Yeah.
But I've looked at other marks for success for myself, like, increased strength, and my clothing size is still changing. And the clothes that are the same size are fitting better. So there are so many other things to look at other than just a number on the scale.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I appreciate you sharing that. So, do you have any advice for someone who may want to get into powerlifting? Should they get a coach? Like any resources, anything that you'd like to share?
I would say find a meet that's local to you and go to a meet, because, as I said, I had never been to a meet. The meet I competed in was the very first meet I had ever been to. And I wish I had been to a meet. I think I would have been even more excited to do it if I had been to a meet first. But find a meet, go to one, meet some people, feel the energy, imagine yourself up there on the platform doing those lifts, see how you feel about it. And if it's as exciting to you as it was to me, do absolutely find a coach or a trainer. Find one who already has powerlifting clients, who specializes in powerlifting, because they'll really be able to set you on the right path and give you the right kind of guidance that you need, especially if you want to be competitive. But also remember that you don't have to be competitive to be a powerlifter, at least not in my opinion. Some people want to say that you have to compete before you can call yourself a power lifter. I don't agree with that. I think that if you train the 3 lifts, you can be a power lifter. Um, so get out there and do it. Even if you don't see yourself competing, that shouldn't stop you from getting started. And your opinion might change,
Yeah, you never know until you give it a shot, see
right?
how you like it. No, I love that. I appreciate that. So, can you tell everybody where can folks follow you and maybe contact you with questions?
I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm at movedatash, Movedatash, and I'm really active on there. So you're welcome to reach out. I would love if you'd give me a follow, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with more people there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today and for coming on and sharing your journey. It's so helpful and just relatable. And I think folks can learn. And again, after bariatric surgery, you can do things like powerlifting and running marathons and all these exciting things. And I just thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. I had a great time.
You bet. Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to be following you because I want to see how the next show goes. I can't wait. Do you know when your next meet is? Do you have a date?
No, we're talking about it. I will do one before the end of the year. I'm just not sure when.
Yeah.
So follow me to find out.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll check out your next meet for sure. Awesome. Well, you guys, you can watch the full episode of this podcast on my YouTube channel, the Active Bariatric Nutrition channel. So go subscribe to that, give it a follow. And also, if you wouldn't mind just sharing this podcast with somebody that you think might find it helpful, because the more folks that we can touch and reach out to and hopefully share people's successful journeys and what can you achieve after bariatric surgery, I think is so helpful for folks that maybe are thinking about beginning this process and this journey. And for people that have already had bariatric surgery and are trying to learn maybe some new things to try. So if you don't mind sharing that, I would so appreciate that. And you can also follow me on my social media pages on Instagram, Active Bariatric, as well as on my Facebook, the Active Bariatric Nutrition Community, and my TikTok channel. And then if you would like to learn more about my one-to-one bariatric nutrition coaching services, please go to my website, activebariatricnutrition.com, and schedule a free discovery call so we can learn more about each other. So we will do this again next week. Excited to get 2024 going with all these wonderful guests. So definitely tune in and check it out. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll do this again next week. Take care.